If you're anything like me, you probably love playing music, you enjoy playing your instrument, but you might not like spending time practicing. In today's video, I'm gonna share with you guys some of the things that I've done to make my practice really fun, enjoyable, and something that I look forward to doing, and I always get something productive out of it. If you're new or returning to my channel, my name is Jordan Evans. I'm a full-time piano teacher and musician. I love teaching piano, I love making YouTube videos, and I love finding ways to make my time the most effective. So no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter what instrument you play, or even if you don't play music at all, I think these tips are gonna be something you can immediately apply to your practice schedules, your everyday life, the way you study, maybe your day-to-day habits. The first tip that I wanna share with you guys is setting up your environment. So in regards to setting up your environment, make sure it's something that's really easy to do. Like for example, I don't practice violin that much because my violin's in a case in my spare bedroom under the bed. There's nothing really encouraging me to go and practice violin. So just set up your environment so it's really easy to go and sit right down and play. For myself, I need my environment to be extremely tidy and neat before I start practicing. Everyone has different standards of that, but I really recommend organizing your area so that you can have a clear mind while you're playing. And also limit distractions. If you have roommates who are loud, maybe have a discussion with them or go find a place where you can practice where they're not around. If the TV's on, just cut it off. If your cell phone is something that's stopping you from having continuous practice and you have to keep picking it up, just put it in the other room for an hour. The second one we're gonna talk about is really similar to the first actually, and that's get everything you need before you start practicing. So our whole goal when we practice is to sit here and have as little distractions as possible. If you get thirsty while you're practicing, you might have to go into the kitchen to get a drink, which might result with you having a conversation with your spouse or getting distracted by something that's on TV or seeing your roommate. Anything can stop you from getting back to practicing. And then some of the other things I recommend is just having your music nearby. For myself, I always have my notes and my sheet music, which I keep on my iPad. I have the IMSLP app, which is great for storing all my music. I'm trying to go as paperless as possible. And just writing utensils, make sure that you have everything you need to be keeping track of what you're doing. The third tip I'm gonna share with you guys is having a focused objective. Not only is this gonna help you during your practice, but it's gonna help you get to the practice area. So for a lot of people, a focused objective is either gonna be you have to prepare for an upcoming lesson, or you have an upcoming performance, or you have a gig that you have to prepare for. And if you don't have any of those things right now, where there's a piece that you have to learn by a certain event, just create something. Say, this is a piece I wanna learn, I'm gonna share it with my family, or I'm gonna post a video of me playing it on social media 1 week from today, and this is what I wanna learn. Once you have that piece, say it's 3 pages long, you have a week to learn it. You could dedicate 2 days to one page, 2 days to the second page, 2 days to the final page, and then spend your last day reviewing and performing. Every time before you practice, make sure there's a very clear objective. For myself, I'll usually pick 8 to 10 measures of a new piece while reviewing the rest of the piece. Just something like that to make sure that you have a goal that you're working towards. The fourth, and honestly one of the most important, is making sure you spend time to warm up. And it's not always the most fun, but as a piano player, it's really important that we're taking the time to use our muscles before we start playing. And as a piano player, and whatever other instrument you play, you can seriously injure yourself if you don't take the time to warm up before you start playing too quickly or something that you're not quite ready for. It's also a great time to work on your fundamentals. So if you don't know your arpeggios or your major scales, this is a great time to really enforce those. And just some tips for warming up. This is one of my favorite things to share with my students. Before you even start playing, pretend like you just wash your hands and you gotta shake them out now. They're wet. So we are just getting relaxed as possible. And now this is just for piano players. I don't know how this would affect other instruments, but just pretend like you're holding 2 tennis balls. Get your hand in this nice shape where your fingers are kind of rounded. Each joint should be a little bit rounded, and then just flip it over. Your arm should be really straight and just in a way that feels comfortable at the piano. Some easy ones to do are just 5-finger exercises. Some of the things to keep in mind is we want to keep our fingers over the piano, and we're just activating each finger as we play. It's almost like our fingers are vipers. We should be super focused on that while we're warming up, and that way it'll translate into our pieces. For stuff like major scales, make sure that you're doing that. For arpeggios, it's the same thing. And that goes for anything we're warming up. This is the time to really prepare our hands, and then we can even challenge ourselves later on in the warm-up to see how fast we can play. Great way to keep track of that, use a metronome. You can just get the metronome on your iPad or your phone. I don't recommend your phone. Try and use your iPad because there's usually less distractions on there. And every day when you practice, say today I did it at 100 beats per minute, tomorrow maybe I'll try 103 or 105. And the fifth one I'm going to talk about today is practicing smarter. And the way that I'm going to tell you guys how to do this is sometimes really hard. Often when we're learning a piece of music, we just want to fly through it. We don't really think about what's happening, what the patterns are. We're just trying to get through it as quickly as possible. Sometimes what practicing smarter means is kind of the tortoise and the hare situation. We're actually going to take less music and we're going to really understand it. We're going to look for chords, we're going to look for patterns, and we're going to look for ways to memorize it. We're also going to practice it extremely slow. There is no reason to practice anything fast when you're first learning it. And through practicing slow, it'll blow your mind if you practice something slow for 2 or 3 days. As long as you're resting, eating healthy, and taking some breaks away from the piano, on the 3rd or 4th day, you're going to come back and you're going to be able to play it fast, and it's going to blow your mind. And when practicing smarter instead of harder, you kind of have an end goal in sight. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get there. You're just going to have more fun because you're not stressing yourself out. It's going to be easier on your mind because you're not taking in as much information. And in the long run, you're actually going to learn much more effectively. Also, practice mentally before you even put your hands on the piano or whatever instrument you play. Look through the notes. Where's the melody? What's my accompaniment doing? Where is it leading to? Where's my phrases? Think about stuff like that. Something I like to do is find the melody and just sing it in my head, or even sing it with my voice before I even play it, so I have an idea of what I'm going through. The next one I'm going to talk about is having a great attitude before you start practicing. In some ways, this is easier said than done, but it's also something we have a lot of control of. The thoughts that you think is almost always going to be how you feel. So you can almost trick yourself sometimes into being happy. But if you're not in a good mood, I don't even recommend practicing. It's not going to be fun for you. You might feel irritable and you actually might end up doing more damage than you do good. Some of the ways I do this is I find something to practice that excites me. If I really don't feel like practicing that day, I won't do something that I've been putting off. I'll find a piece like a worship piece and I'll just find the melody and play through the chords and have fun with it, not even thinking about practicing. And usually after 15 to 20 minutes of doing that, I feel myself actually cheering up naturally. Some other ways to do this is just practicing gratefulness. And this is gonna sound so corny, but sometimes before I practice, I just thank God. Thank you, God, for hands that I can use. Thank you, God, for a sound mind. Thank you that I'm in an opportunity where I have a piano that I can play on. Thank you for the privilege of being able to sit here at this piano. Some people have to work labor jobs all day, or they don't have the resources to do what I do. And so just taking 5 minutes, even just saying that to you guys, I feel really inspired. And it's like, what do I have to be upset about? I have so many things to be thankful for. And just doing that for a few minutes, it'll really change your mindset. And the next one is record yourself. So this one's extremely important for both your growth and for your self-esteem. A lot of times when we're playing something, we might think it sounds bad. You record yourself and you're so surprised. You're like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. I sound way better than I thought I did. Or I've even had experiences where I'll listen to myself playing and I'm like, who the heck is that? That doesn't sound like me at all. That sounds great. But on the flip side of that, sometimes if you're really struggling, you might not sound so great. But this is where filming yourself is awesome, because you can watch from a third person perspective and say, oh, maybe I should try that there. Oh, look, my technique wasn't great in this position. Maybe I should try doing this instead. I usually recommend filming yourself at the very end of your practice. When I get home, I'll watch, or whenever I was in college, when I got back to my dorm from the practice rooms, that's when I would watch. Just right after you practice, maybe give yourself 10 to 15 minutes so you're in a different mindset. Watch and then honestly evaluate yourself. And this is something that's so funny. I read a book several years ago called The Musician's Way, and one of the chapters was all about recording yourself. And this book was written in 2006, and he was saying to go out and buy a tape recorder. So that is just crazy how far we've come, that all of us have these devices in our pockets capable of recording ourselves and analyzing ourselves pretty much with limitless space. So it's something we really need to utilize and take advantage of. The next one is keeping track of progress. And if you watch any of my videos, you guys know I love journaling and I love recording progress. I made a whole video about this where I talk about how to set up daily goals, how to set up weekly goals, and what to plan for your practice session. And I'm just gonna put that right here so you can watch that video next if you'd like to. But if we're not keeping track of our progress, it's really challenging to reflect and see where we've come from. So over the course of several weeks, you might feel like you haven't gotten a lot done, but through looking at your progress, you could say, oh wait, 3 weeks ago, I wasn't even able to play 8 measures of this piece. Now I'm 24 measures in. And it's just little ways to get excited and kind of make what you're doing more fun. At least for me, it does. And this also is probably the most important overall for making your practice effective, because you've written down what you want to do, you've planned ahead, and when you get to the practice room, it's time to execute that goal. Afterwards, you can reflect, talk about how you did, set a plan for the following day. And the final tip I have for you guys is reward yourself. Practicing and learning an instrument is really hard work. And if you take the time, if you just spend an hour of undistracted practice, really find a way to reward yourself. Whatever you have fun doing, find a way to implement that in as a reward for what you've done. So for myself, I'm a really big Marvel fan, and I'm a Star Wars fan too. Right now, Disney Plus releases these shows. And for me, every Friday and right now Wednesday for Loki, I could get up first thing in the morning and watch that episode and then feel guilty about myself. So I actually wait for my wife to come home at night and we watch it together, and that's my reward at the end of the day. So Wednesday morning, I make sure I'm getting my practice in, and I have that in sight at the end of the day, that whenever I feel proud and accomplished of myself, I get to sit down and watch Loki, and usually we have pizza while we do it. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. I love teaching piano, and talking about this stuff's actually one of my favorite things. Whenever I'm giving my students plans for their week, I love writing out and I love talking to them. Like, say, you promised me you're gonna do this for 15 minutes every day. And so this is the kind of content I love creating, and I hope this resonates with you guys. Even if there's just 1 or 2 tips from this list that you can instantly apply today, that makes me so happy. And if you're someone who wants to start playing piano, I actually have a beginner piano starter pack in the description, and they're 2 pianos that I really endorse that are high quality and affordable for anybody, I think. So you can start playing piano in the next 48 hours. If any of these tips particularly stood out for you, or there's any that you've tried that haven't worked, let me know what you think down in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.